Another weekend of Championship football and a bunch of talking points. Let's head into this one. So guys, welcome back to another episode of the Championship Roundup. This video is going to be split into two parts. So the first half of the video, we're going to be going over all of the action that took place in the Championship over the course of the weekend. And the second half of the video, we're going to be going over my midweek Championship score prediction. So as always, get all your thoughts and your predictions in the comments down below for a chance to be involved next time. Just before we do head into anything though, I must give a big shout out to our sponsors over at OneFootball. As always, you can check out the new OneFootball app in the top line of the description down below. Really handy to have, especially as we have all this football coming at us so thick and fast. You can get live updates to your phone whenever a goal goes in. Look into players at your club in a little bit more detail. Look into some of their underlying stats so far this season. That's something that I found the app really helpful for. And we also have the January transfer window, which is only around the corner. So if you want to get transfer updates and all that sort of stuff, when all the rumours do start circulating, OneFootball's the place to be. And before we get into talk about any of the individual games, I will include your guys' score predictions on screen now. So fair play to everyone who did successfully get a prediction right. I had a fairly decent one, to be fair to me. I got two of mine spot on. That was Brentford against Blackburn and Reading against Nottingham Forest. You guys had a pretty decent week for predictions as well. The only scoreline that wasn't predicted by anyone this week was Barnsley 0, Bournemouth 4. If we take a look to the side of me, what that means for the prediction league, it's getting very close in and around the top of the table, and there hasn't actually been all too much movement in there, but like I say myself, having a decent week, picking up 11 points, I'm still sat 4th in that table at the moment. If we then take a look at the League 1 table, here are you guys who are closest to getting into that main prediction league at the moment. So at the moment it's Logan Spavin on 99 points. So guys, if you do go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and please do subscribe if you are new around here. If we could hit 200 likes, that would be massively appreciated. But without any further ado, let's hop into this one. Starting out with Friday night's game, we saw Bournemouth getting back to winning ways with a really impressive away display at Barnsley, beating them by 4-0. Two of the goals being real moments of quality and the other two sort of coming from Barnsley mistakes. But give credit to Bournemouth, they switched up the system for this one and it worked really well to their advantage. For a lot of the season so far, we've seen Bournemouth go with quite a dynamic forward three. Usually it will be the likes of Solanke, Danjuma, and then either like Brooks, Stanislas maybe. But this time around they switched it up to go two up top. We saw Sam Surridge get his first goal of the season in midweek against Preston, who's back in the starting 11 for this one. I thought that him and Solanke worked off each other really well, so that's obviously a different option that Bournemouth have going forward this season if they want to play with that forward three or that forward two. And it worked into their hands, you know. Barnsley, as they usually do, played with quite a high line. You can see by the average positions here, the majority that Barnsley scored was on the halfway line for this game. They obviously like to keep things tight and pressure, that's their game plan, but obviously Bournemouth managed to find those spaces in behind, and it was a really effective performance in the end. You know, the Rico free kick was absolutely fantastic, Billings finish from outside the box was a nice one, and then both strikers getting on the score sheet as well with Solanke and Surridge. So it sends Bournemouth second in the Championship table now. 30 points after 16 games. I'm sure that all the Bournemouth fans would have taken that at the start of the season. Next up then we had Reading 2, Nottingham Forest 0. Things aren't getting much easier for Forest at the moment, are they? Now they started the game fairly brightly. Lyle Taylor had a decent chance which was well saved by Raphael, but undoubtedly the game-changing moment was the red card for Yates. Now, the ball swung in. For me, Samba's just all a bit too casual with it. He's sort of waiting for the ball to drop into his hands instead of really going and attacking the ball. Ultimately, it's swept away from him, and then Yates obviously handles on the ball. Undoubtedly a red card, and Lucas João took that penalty away well. And after 16 minutes being down to 10 men and 1-0 down against a side like Reading, who's so good on the ball, it was always going to be a massive uphill battle for Forest here on in, and it was, you know, it ended up being a bit of a training exercise for Reading, really. In the end, Morrison wrapped things up in the second half. Nice header from him from Elise cross coming in. But Elise, by the way, we need to talk about him because he was absolutely running the show. Whenever I get to catch Reading over a full 90 minutes, he is a player that I'm looking out for at the moment. He's just got so many different attributes about him to his game. I think that he is a player whose ceiling is ridiculously high. In this game for me, he absolutely stole the show. 4 key passes more than anyone else on the pitch. It's been an immensely impressive start to the season for the youngster with 2 goals and 6 assists already to his name. And Reading still very much remain in the top. And Reading still remaining in and around the top of the Championship. This result leaves them 30 points after 16 games, exact same as Bournemouth. For Forest though, still leaves them in a dangerous position, especially with both Wycombe and Derby picking up points in midweek. Next up then we had a really exciting one going on between Brentford and Blackburn Rovers. 2-2 in the end. It was a cracker of an opening goal by Joe Rothwell. Really powerful run from midfield, manages to jinx his way in and out of about 4 Brentford players that he manages to get around of, and then the finish is absolutely ferocious. Hits it with real venom behind it, and David Ray has absolutely no chance of getting to it. But what we all thought would be the game-changing moment of this match was the red card for Darragh Lenihan. Now, there wasn't all too much in it, but Ivan Toney's a striker who's intelligent enough to know that when the slightest of touches does come, he sort of tries to grapple onto his shoulder a little bit. Ivan Toney's always going to go down in that situation. The red card reminded me a little bit of Joe Rafferty's red card against Blackburn a few weeks ago, and obviously that then leaves them down to 10 men. Toney took the penalty away, and from that point onwards in the second half, we're all expecting Brentford to go on, dominate proceedings, and end up with all 3 points. And it did look to be heading in that direction. Sergi Canos with an absolutely terrific finish. He's been always quite an interesting player, Sergi Canos, because he can come up with these real moments of quality. He's just never quite been able to show that on a consistent enough basis to be sort of a regular week in, week out starter for Brentford. But nevertheless, an absolutely terrific finish from him. It was a brilliant shot into the far corner. I thought he'd try and, maybe try and bend it, but just went for power and caught Kaminsky off guard. But credit to Blackburn Rovers for getting back into this game. In the later stages of this one, credit to them, they put a lot of people up the pitch. They were pressing Brentford really high, and it was a result of that press that they got back into this game. Brentford not being able to foul their lines. I think it was Thompson with sort of the shanked clearance. In the end, it fell to Davenport, who does well to make it 2-2. I'm sure that Blackburn fans, they'll see that as a very good point, considering they were down to 10 men in this one, and Brentford will probably see it as a bit of an opportunity missed. Next up then, we have Birmingham picking up all 3 points at Bristol City, 1-0 in the end. Holly Dean with the only goal of the match. Now, when you're coming up against Birmingham, you know what you're getting from them defensively, and in possession, you need to be flat, fast, and a little bit clever with some of the decisions you make. Bristol City weren't really that in this match. They were just a little bit too slow, what it seemed to me. The first off, they did have spells while they were on top, and a couple of chances that fell their way. Neil Etheridge made a decent save. They had a couple that went over the bar. In the second half, Maxime Collin had a chance which he cleared off the line. But throughout the 90 minutes, Bristol City didn't look all too threatening throughout this one. And in the second half, when Birmingham really did start to have a spell on top, they looked like the side which was going to go on and win it. I mean, Ivan Sanchez in this game was absolutely terrific. 5 key passes in this match, more chances created than anyone else over the weekend in the Championship. I can't stress this enough, but he needs to be a starter week in, week out for Birmingham. Play to his strengths, and you've got an absolute diamond on your hands there. Sanchez on one wing, Bella on the other. In the end, the goal came from a set piece. Jeremy Bella's ball in was notched in by Harley Dean to give Birmingham all 3 points. So a good 3 points for them on the road. Bristol City just a little bit slow to get going for this one. Next up then, we saw Coventry picking up a massive 3 points against Rotherham, and the away side just didn't turn up for this one. Everything that was right about the Bournemouth performance was wrong about this one. Coventry really did the number on them. They were 2-0 up after just 12 minutes. Tyler Walker and Biemo were linking up really well together. That was shown for the first goal, which caught Rotherham out. It was quite a basic long ball that came forward. A really nice chest down from Walker. Biemo latches onto it and finishes well. Walker then gets on the score sheet for his second. The third goal, brilliant ball in to the far post from Gustavo Hamer, who gets another assist for the season, which is headed in by Ostergaard. Obviously, they do get that consolation goal back from the penalty spot. But apart from that, yeah, Rotherham were second best for the most of this one. And these games come the end of the season are going to make all the difference. In the Championship, what tends to happen around halfway through is these mini leagues form. The bottom quarter, you then got the mid-table teams and the sides fighting for the top 6. Games against each other for those sides in the bottom quarter will make all the difference come the end of the season. And Coventry have had a really good 2 weeks of Championship football. From the win against Cardiff, the last minute equalisers against Norwich and Derby, and then this win against Rotherham, they've put themselves into a really good position now where they're 6 points clear of the relegation zone. For Rotherham though, things aren't quite looking as positive. I had a bit of a dig into some of their stats throughout the season so far. Currently they're averaging the fewest key passes per 90, so that bit of invention that gets them in on goal, and those little individual sparks of quality just seem to be lacking from this side at the moment. Next up then, we had Huddersfield 2, QPR 0. Now, I thought this one would be quite an open game of football, but for the vast majority of it, it was one-way traffic. I thought it would be quite a good indicator to see where both sides are at the moment, but Huddersfield had this one completely their own way, and QPR a really disappointing performance. Once again, how many times have we said it this season, if it wasn't for Dieng in net, it could have been 3-4-0 for Huddersfield with some of the chances they had going forward, but they took the lead after just 3 minutes. It was a terrific finish from Josh Koroma. The goal quite similar to the one that Son scored this weekend against Arsenal. Cuts inside and just glides it into the top corner. It was a wonderful finish. He finds things so effortless and has been such an effective player for Huddersfield so far this season. Already 5 goals for him. I think that he's going to go on and really be their talisman for this season. But they make it 2-0 before half-time. Koroma this time getting the assist for Harry Toffolo. A lot of Huddersfield's attacking threat was coming down that left side. They were really targeting QPR's right-hand side of their defence. And as you can see to the side of me, the match stats really paint the picture for this one. QPR had very little going forward for them, and like I say, if it wasn't for Dieng, it could have been much worse. The result leaves QPR 18th in the table now, and Huddersfield climb up to 13th with what was a really impressive performance. Next up then, we go to the Millwall against Derby match. Now, before we do get into talking about the football, we of course had the story which overshadowed everything over the weekend and got a lot of the mainstream media attention. That was of course some of the Millwall fans booing booing the taking of the knee. Now, there is a bit of a discussion to be had around this. I mean, no longer does every Championship club take the knee before a match. You know, QPR came out with what I thought was, you know, a decent statement as to why they no longer do it. I thought that Les Ferdinand came out with some decent points during that, and ultimately, you know, you're more than entitled to your view of whether you think we should or shouldn't carry on with it before a match. You know, that's totally fine. However, one thing that did stand out to me was the mixed messaging on social media afterwards in terms of what taking the knee actually stands for. Some people arguing it's a political stance, and others obviously saying that it's an anti-discrimination message. What I think it's important to pick up on, though, is the statement that Millwall released on Friday before the match had taken place. They said, "We wish to make clear that taking the knee for us is in no way representative of any agreement with political messaging or ideology. It is purely about tackling discrimination and has been the case throughout." And for me, that's always been the case for it. And so for that being the reasoning behind it, for me at least, the booing did come across as, I know for a lot of people as well, quite uncomfortable viewing. After the game, Millwall right back Marlon Romeo said this: "What they've done is booed and condemned a peaceful gesture which was put in place to highlight, combat and stop any discriminatory behaviour and racism. That's it. That's all the gesture is." So I do welcome your guys' thoughts on this one. You know, I didn't want to just brush over this at the weekend because it was, you know, it has got a lot of people talking. But let's be moving on to the game of football now. Massive 3 points for Derby County, that one. It takes them off the bottom of the Championship and leaves them just 2 points behind Nottingham Forest in 21st position. Now, for Derby, the goal in the end coming from Jason Knight. It was a nice ball from the left-hand side in from Craig Forsyth. He spotted Martin Wycombe as the open man. Bilkowski initially makes a save, and then Knight finishes with the follow-up. Now, for Derby, it's important that they continue to capitalise on this form. They're now unbeaten in their last 3. It's a tough game coming up for them in midweek against Brentford, but nevertheless, winning football matches breeds confidence, so they'll take a lot from this game. For Millwall, on the other hand, home form really has been an issue for them lately, hasn't it? They've only won 1 match at the end so far this season. We asked the question, you know, would fans coming back have an impact on that in this one? But really what's been their problem so far this season, and was evident in this game once again, was that lack of creativity going forward. You know, unless Jed Wallace is able to conjure up something by himself, they really have struggled in front of goal so far this season. Just the 13 goals scored 16 games into the season this far into it. So Millwall fans, do let me know down below, what do you think needs changing at home in terms of your structure setting up going forward? But for Derby, massive 3 points there. Next up then, we had Norwich beating Sheff Wednesday by 2 goals to 1. Now, how many late goals did Norwich score during their promotion season last time round in the Championship? It was the same unsure for this one, after Sheff Wednesday had showed some really positive signs going forward, giving credit to them. You know, under Pulis so far, they looked a little bit limited in some of their matches, but this game they really had their moments. I mean, their goal was a real moment of quality. Adam Reach with his absolute wonder of a left foot. It's a brilliant ball in from that left-hand side into Josh Windass to give Wednesday the lead. And at 1-0, this is where the game really is in the balance. You know, Wednesday had a couple of penalty appeals that didn't go their way. You know, on the flip side of that, obviously Reading fans will say they should have had a couple of penalties against Sheff Wednesday. So I suppose luck in some ways worked its way out. But the Vrancic tackle on Harris was an interesting one, and I want to know from you guys whether you thought it was a penalty or not, because it looks as if he may get the slightest of touches on the ball. It's a difficult one to tell from the angle I saw, but Vrancic in the end very much being the key man for Norwich. I mean, the 2 assists he got. The first one for Martin, brilliantly weighted pass. There was 9 Sheff Wednesday defenders behind the ball here. It's eye of the needle stuff, but a brilliant assist nonetheless. And then for the second one as well, for Max Aaron's, a brilliant flick into him, and ultimately Norwich claim all 3 points with that goal. So really impressive stuff for Norwich, who are now sitting comfortably top of the Championship. They got that 1 point lead over Bournemouth at the moment, 31 points after 16 matches. Really impressive stuff for Sheff Wednesday. They'll be feeling probably a little bit deflated that they've not got anything from that game. Next up then, we had North End drawing 2-2 against Wycombe, where it was another pretty lacklustre performance from Preston. The Deep Dell, it has to be said. After the away side had started out quite brightly, it was North End who took the lead. Tom Barkhusen with, I think, his 3rd goal in his last 4 matches, latching on from a Wycombe defensive mistake. But one of the game-changing moments probably did come with Ben Pearson going off injured. We're hopeful that that one's not all too serious. It did look quite a painful one as he rolled his ankle. But heading into the second half, Wycombe were on us like that. Cashgett and Hogan, I thought, were really impressive for the away side. They were being a real nuisance, popping up in little pockets of space here and there, dragging our defenders all over the pitch. And obviously their equaliser, actually a really bit of an intelligent movement from Gareth McCleary cutting inside, and then Hogan with the ball through, smashed it in past Declan Rudd. Free kicks and set pieces we all knew would be an important part of this match. That was how they got their second goal. Joe Jacobson with quite a lengthy free kick which slams against the post, and then Cashgett follows it in to make it 2 for Wycombe. And to be honest, up until that point the goal had been coming Wycombe. Wycombe were the side who really were pressing forward. It wasn't as if it was like sort of a sit back and smash and grab performance. They were good going forward. But Preston do manage to get back into it thanks to another defensive mistake from Wycombe. This is why they'll be kicking themselves in the foot. Don't get me wrong, it's a brilliant ball in from Scott Sinclair, but McCarthy just can't sort his feet out and ends up sort of shanking it into the back of his own net. Preston do get the chance to go and win this one. Emil Rees, but can't manage to get that effort on target. So in the end, the points were shared at Deepdale. For Preston, like I said, another frustrating afternoon at Deepdale. Next up then, we had Stoke beating Middlesbrough by 1-0. Nathan Collins' first half goal was enough to separate these two sides. We said in the preview to this one, we didn't think there'd be all too much in it. It's two sides who like to be quite pragmatic with the way they play. So, you know, a 1-goal margin was always going to be the case for this sort of match. But brilliant ball from the left-hand side from Fox into Collins, who rose highest to head in. Now, Collins has been a really impressive performer for Stoke so far this season. If we actually look at the stats for him for this game, 2 total tackles, 5 clearances, a goal, a man of the match performance from the 19-year-old. And Stoke have got a really good span of youngsters coming through at the moment who I think will serve them really well this season. That result now leaves them at 5th in the table. In the second half, Stoke probably did have a couple of chances to go and kill this game off. Middlesbrough not quite at their creative best. Obviously, I'm sure you've all seen the Neil Warnock interview from after the match. He wasn't too happy with the facilities there at Stoke, was he? But we've been waiting for this sort of Stoke side for the past like 2 seasons that they've been in the Championship now. It is a team who can grind out and be the difference in these tight matches and nick a win here and there. Really impressive stuff from them so far this season. I think there's a lot of positives for them. Next up then, we had Swansea beating Luton by 2-0. The big 3 points for Swansea in this one. That now makes it 3 wins from their last 5, cements their place in the top 6 for the time being as well, and they took the lead after just 2 minutes of this one. Bit of a sucker punch for Luton really, but AU lays the ball off for Robertson with the help of a slight deflection, just manages to find its way past the keeper. A nice finish in the end to make it 1-0 for Swansea. As we all know, throughout the season so far, Swansea have struggled to score more than 1 goal in quite a few games so far, so when Luton did start to really apply that pressure going forward, there was the feeling that they may get back into this game, and they gave a decent account of themselves going forward. Luton, that goal just wouldn't quite come. One of the game-changing moments then came in the second half with the red card for Pearson, a second yellow card. It's always a bit of a grey area, this one, sort of, isn't it? You know, a high foot, he tries to go for the overhead kick, where he puts his head down to get the ball, so like I say, it's a bit of a grey area, that one. But Luton certainly had the chances, you know. Berry's going to be looking back at that chance that he missed and thinking, how's he not hit the back of the net? But ultimately, late on, AU did wrap up all 3 points. It was a lovely finish from outside the box in at the goalkeeper's near post. And like I say, good 3 points for Swansea in that one, where they've actually scored more than 1 goal in the game. And then to finish it off with Watford going up against Cardiff. Now, in many ways, this was the perfect away performance. Now, 3 consecutive wins for this Cardiff squad, who beforehand we had mentioned Neil Harris coming under increasing pressure. He's really pulled it out of the bag, and we did talk about this a few videos ago. You know, perspective can change very quickly in the Championship with the games coming as fast as they are at the moment. You know, we're playing every week and every midweek at the moment. Momentum can shift just like that, and for Cardiff, it changed just at the right time, because make no mistake about it, this Cardiff squad should be challenging in and around the top 6 with some of the quality they have in here. But it was another goal for Kiefer Moore. Watford failed to clear a corner which came in, the ball was sort of bobbling around. Kiefer Moore getting on the end of it for his 8th goal of the season. What a signing he's turned out to be so far for Cardiff. But for Watford, it was a frustrating performance going forward. They couldn't really conjure up all too many clear-cut chances. You can see by the stats to the side of me, they just had the 1 shot on target in this game. And Watford have been a funny old side so far this season, because their form has been fairly erratic in terms of actually hitting the back of the net. You know, we saw them, for example, put 4 goals past Preston, but that's actually the only game they've scored in their last 4 Championship matches, so failed to hit the back of the net in 3 of their last 4. On paper, this Watford side is exceptional, but something just hasn't quite clicked for them this far into the season. But guys, there we have it. There are all the matches that did go on this weekend. In terms of my goal of the weekend, some crackers scored. Head on over to the community tab if you want to have your vote on this one. But for me personally, I think I'm going to give it to Rico for his fantastic free kick against Barnsley. Then for my result of the weekend, I'm going to give that to Derby. That could turn out to be a massive 3 points for them come the end of the season, and could be the thing that kickstarts their season now. So do get all your thoughts in the comments down below as to what you made of all this weekend's action. Now let's head into my midweek score prediction. So as always, all these games will be listed in the description down below so that you guys can easily go ahead and make your predictions. Starting out with Coventry up against Luton. I don't think there'll be all too much in it between these two. Now Coventry currently find themselves on a decent unbeaten run. Luton, like I mentioned before, I thought got maybe a little bit unlucky not to get anything from that Swansea game. I may fancy them to get a point from this one. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw between these two sides, both capable of scoring some goals. Huddersfield up against Sheff Wed is an interesting one. If Huddersfield can build on that really positive QPR performance, Sheff Wed will be a tougher side to break down though, you have the feeling. Just going to edge Huddersfield for this one though. I'm going to go 1-0 to the home side, but purely pull something out of the bag for that one. After that, we then go to Millwall up against QPR. Now, a big match here for both team seasons, really. Neither of them are on a particularly great run of form at the moment. I have the feeling that Millwall may turn things around in this one, you know. I'm going to go 1-0 to the home side. After that, we then got Stoke going up against Cardiff. Two quite similarly matched sides, actually, so far this season. Cardiff now seem to be back to their best. 3 consecutive wins, some really impressive performances along the way, but Stoke at home, not an easy game. We're going to go 1-1 in that game. Next up, we go to Swansea up against Bournemouth. A good 3 points for Swansea. Both sides obviously currently find themselves in the top 2 at the moment. Between the two on paper, I think Bournemouth may have a little bit more edge about them going forward. I'm going to go 2-1 to the away side. Then we get to Watford up against Rotherham. Rotherham pretty lacklustre at the weekend, but the same could probably be said for Watford as well, so this is a big chance for each of them. Between the two, I am going to back Watford to get back to winning ways. I'm going to go 2-0 to the home side. Into Wednesday's fixtures as the early kickoff, we got Preston going up against Middlesbrough. We all know our record at Deepdale's not been great so far, just 4 points picked up at home. Middlesbrough are typically the sort of side that we've struggled against so far this season as well. The way that Warnock's going to have them drilled, got a bad feeling about this game. I'm going to go 1-0 Middlesbrough, and hopefully I'm proven wrong. Barnsley up against Wycombe, two quite contrasting styles there. I was quite impressed with Wycombe at the weekend, actually. I thought they gave a decent account of themselves, and I wouldn't be at all surprised to see them getting a point from this one. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in that game. Next up then to Brentford against Derby. We'll see if the away side can continue their impressive bit of momentum that they picked up at Millwall. This is a different game though. Brentford obviously have a lot more going forward and will cause them more problems going forward, especially compared to that Millwall game. Got a feeling that Brentford may come through this game, but who knows? Derby could really turn their fortunes around. I'm going to go 2-1 to the home side. Bristol City up against Blackburn. Bristol City not great at the weekend, I didn't think. Going forward, they look pretty light, and Blackburn, really impressive point considering that they had Lenihan sent off. Obviously, he will be suspended for this game, but I still think the away side may come through. I'm going to go 2-1 Blackburn. Next up then to Norwich up against Nottingham Forest. Now for Forest, they're just not getting the decisions going their way at the moment, are they? I mean, the red card obviously didn't help at the weekend, but nothing's tilting their way. I think that may continue in this one. It's a tough match they're heading into. I'm going to go 2-0 Norwich in that game. And then finally, to wrap things up, we've got Reading going up against Birmingham. Now, a really impressive 3 points for Birmingham on the road at the weekend. We'll see if they can follow it up in this one. Reading, though, I really like the look of it at the weekend. I thought that going forward, they caused a lot of problems. I expect them to create a lot of chances in this sort of game as well. But Birmingham do keep things tight. Just going to edge Reading for this one. I'm going to go 1-0 to the home side. So as you can see to the side of me, those are my predictions for I see happening in midweek for the Championship. Do get all your thoughts in the comments down below for a chance to be involved in the next video. But apart from that, guys, thanks so much for watching. So if you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like, and please do subscribe for a bit of regular Championship content. It's massively appreciated. But apart from that, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.